Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of learning advanced Go by building projects with Scylla and Kafka. Let's move on to the next part and declare the interface or the behavior that we expect from our store package. Later on in the series, this package will also host the logic for communicating with ScyllaDB and handling the actual storage. For now, we're not making any kind of network calls or database queries. Still, we'd want to be able to develop the business logic independently from our database software. I start by creating a types file where I'll define the types or entities that we have in our domain. Obviously, we have a report struct containing the following fields. Report's going to have a status of type, a report status, which I'll cover in a bit. Our reports can have many messages attached to them containing the following fields. Now let's go back to report status. Let's create an enum for it. It could be unknown, pending, reviewing, and last but not the least, resolved. Let's also define some helper functions for working with status. First one is to facilitate converting status to string, which is a simple switch case statement. And another one for parsing a string to a valid report status we defined above. Notice that for invalid strings, we just return unknown status. Alright, looks like there's a typo somewhere. Time to declare our store interface. For now, it only has one method, create report, which takes a report and returns an error. Actually, I'm thinking of another name. Whoops. Let's call it create report request. A create report request has the following format. Let's go ahead and make use of what we cooked up in this package. Create a package called reporting, which contains a file called manager.go. In this file, we're going to have a report manager which sits in between the store layer and HTTP layer. Report Manager requires two additional dependencies to perform its duties. One to generate UUIDs and another for storing the reports. So you can see now the dots are being connected. Report Manager has a method createReport, obviously for creating reports. It takes a createReport request and returns a createReport response and an error. Please bear in mind that the request response types here are different than the ones we declared in store package. Where do we define request response types? For that, create another file called types.go in this directory and put the request response there. So we are expecting users to give us a user ID and a title for creating reports. And in return, we send them back the ID of the report we created for them. Going back to create report to complete its implementation. First, generate a UUID for the new report. Then make a create report request to ask the store layer to save this report for us. We use the UUID we just generated. A default pending status. User ID and title we take from the request. Finally, call the create report in store package, and if successful, pass the report ID as the response. In the next part, we'll focus on testing the code. We'll first generate mocks for our UUID generator and store interface and test the functionality of our report manager. Until then, stay safe and have fun hacking.